What a title this time, hopefully you guys can hear me over my air condition. It's like super hot today, and this clicking of the signal. But hey guys, I'm not gonna keep you guys too long because I really don't want this live to be too long. First of all, because I want people to watch it. Second of all, because I'm on my way to get Destin, and once hey Latoya, and once Destin gets in this car, it's kind of a wrap, okay? But hey guys, I'll give about a minute for some more people to come on, and then I'm gonna jump right in. Hey Tracy Ann, long time no see, girl. Y'all, I am going to Cabo in 2 days, okay? We are going to take all the precautions to be safe. We know COVID's a real thing, but I host an annual retreat through my community, for my community, and we're going to Cabo, so I'm super excited. Oh my gosh, I have not taken any like out of the country trips in a while because of having a baby, COVID, all those things. So I'm about to enjoy myself. As you're coming on, please say hi. Tell me where you're viewing from. Tell me what your name is. This live is titled something of the way of he's ready to give it to you, but you aren't. And like I said, I want this live to be pretty quick. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I say that every time and then we be up here for a while, but I'm really going to try to not keep you guys a long time because once Destin gets in the car. Hey Jordan, my favorite cousin Jordan, how are you? Okay, so I want to jump right in. So basically, God is ready. God is truly ready to do some amazing things in your life if he hasn't already. I mean, if you're on this live, he's already done enough by waking you up this morning, right? But just from my own personal experience, so if you've been watching my stories, every morning I've been trying to do some form of exercise, moving my body, right? And so when I go to the track, me and God really just have us a good old time, right? Like I either turn a sermon on or I turn my praise and worship music on, and I really get honest and transparent with God, right? I'm like, God, this seems like a lot, or, I'm just very honest with him as I usually am in journaling. But I've just been in this season, I've been asking God to reveal to himself to me in multiple ways, right? God, I want to hear you in everything that I'm doing, when I'm busy, when I'm slowing down. God, I just want to know. I already know he's there with me, but I want to be able to hear him in every season, every situation, right? Because that's what happens with a lot of people. We get accustomed to hearing God a specific type of way in our sleep, right? In our dreams, in the car on our way to work, but then something changes and we say we can't hear God anymore. No, God's always speaking. It's just you're looking for him to show up in a particular way that he's not showing up anymore because he's stretching you or elevating you, right? And so I always say, God, show me you in every way that you speak to me, right? And so I was talking to him and I was like, God, right now you have me doing a lot, okay? Like a lot. I'm starting 2 businesses at one time, separately from like Realizing Destiny and Therapy and all of that. We're hosting a conference. I'm hosting the retreat in Cabo. There's like a lot going on, right? And I was like, God, there's a lot going on. And even though you are showing out in a mighty way financially, God, there's still a lot that has to be done, okay? And where's all this money coming from, God? and God just kept saying, Destiny, like if I instructed you to do it, I will provide. I will give you the provision for it. So you just have to trust me, right? But you have to act as if you trust me. If you are saying, God, how is this going to happen? And I'm telling you that it's going to happen, but your actions are not in alignment with you believing that I'm going to do it, guess what? You won't see it, right? And that is scriptural. That's biblical, right? In Matthew and Mark, there's a scripture, guys, somebody put it in the comments, but it says if you speak to the mountain, tell the mountain to move, but you have doubt in your mind, you won't see it move. And that's Destiny's version of it, but it's in there, I promise. And that's true, right? Because if I'm hearing God say that he's going to provide the finances, if I hear God saying he's going to do whatever it is he's saying he's going to do, but my actions are as if I don't believe it's going to happen, I'm not going to see it. And it's going to take longer for him to release it, because the sooner you show God that you trust him, the sooner he releases it, right? And so that day I was walking around the track and I was just like, God, where's the finances coming from for this? Not only that, right? So God knows me, right? He knows us all thank you, Latoya. He knows us all very, very well, right? So the beginning of this month, I was in prayer and I go to God at the beginning of every month, and then I try to go to him. I go to him regularly, but for sure at the beginning of the month, like, God, what is our focus this month in general, life, business, everything. And then I always try to go to God at the beginning of every Monday and say, okay, God, what is my to-do list for this week? What do you want me to focus on? What are you have me doing, right? And so at the beginning of this month, God was very, very, very particular, right? He said, Destiny, this month, I don't want you to focus on posting or advertising in any way, shape, or form about Prayer P, about PFP. He told me to cancel PFP until after the conference, right? He told me that he didn't want me to enroll any new people to my mentorship, right? So he was very particular. I'm like, okay, good, like, bet, right? I know why he said that now, because knowing me, right, when stuff gets a little tight, I would have tried to, offer my services at a discounted price, or I would have offered to all of my old clients, hey, I got this special going on, or something like that, right? To compensate for what I felt needed to be coming in, right? Especially with about to travel, I don't feel comfortable traveling without a certain amount of money, different things like that, right? And so I would have tried to compensate, but because I had the word that God gave me at the beginning of the month of what I could not do, I knew that meant that he wanted to show me that he could do it better than I could, that he could do it quicker than I could. And knowing God the way I know God, he was going to do it without me having to work as hard as I would have chose to work, right? And when I tell you, as I was going around the track and I'm just like, okay, God, like, what are we doing? Like, where's this coming from? God said, do you trust me? And I was like, you know what, God, you're right. At this point, you've showed me how good you are. You show me that you just show out, And so, God, I believe you. Like, if you're telling me to do this, if you're telling me to move forward, then I'm going to do it. And I did it, right? There were some things that I had to make some final decisions on, and I was going to hold back, like, God, well, I'm going to wait until you come through. And he was like, no, if you believe what I said that I'm going to do, then you keep forward and I'm going to do it. And when I tell you, as I booked the thing, right, literally my PayPal started going off with payments coming through, right? And I just started laughing because earlier that day I was talking to one of the young ladies in that's going to be on the trip, and I was just encouraging her, saying, like, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of what your situation looks like, what did God say? If God said that this is going to happen, it's going to happen. So I'm encouraging her, but with certain things myself, I'm in the same boat, right? And so I just say all that to say that God truly is ready to release everything that he's promised you. In this season, God is doing some, not that he doesn't in every season, but in this season, he's moving so fast, like, and if he gave you a promise, know that the time frame of when that promise, hey PJ, know that the time frame of when that promise is released is truly based on you. God is, now, of course, we all know that there's like preparation, like you have to be prepared for what he's going to release you and all that. But if God gave you a promise, he wants to release it to you as soon as possible, right? As soon as you are physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually prepared for it. It's just we don't do the work physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally to have it released quicker. And then we're like, God, you said this last year. God, you said this 2 years ago. God, you said this 4 years ago. And God's like, I know what I said, but do you know what I said, right? Because, oh, I ain't about to do that. My car is about to go. But sorry guys. But he's ready to do it. He's not going to tell you that he wants to do it if he does not want to do it, right? But a lot of times we don't show God that we really believe for him to do it. So he's like, I was given this analogy, basically like, I went blank because I was this child with this card just didn't make sense. But it's basically like, we, like God saying, okay, for example, right? you're like, somebody's like, oh God, I'm ready for my husband, I'm ready to be married, right? And they're in a relationship currently, right? And they're like, God, I'm ready to be married, I'm ready to have my husband. And God's like, I'm preparing, like, you're in prayer, and God's like, I'm preparing you for marriage. It's coming sooner than you think, right? And you're like, yes, God, right? Because I get people all the time in this particular scenario, and they're like, yes, God, I'm ready, right? And God is like, okay, I need you to leave that relationship. But God, you say you was preparing me for marriage. But God, you said it's coming sooner than I think. God, how could you possibly be preparing me for marriage? How could it possibly be sooner than I think? But you want me to leave this relationship that I've spent this amount of time in? Like, then that means it's not around the corner, God, because I can't possibly meet somebody in 2 months and get married to them in 6 months. God, that just doesn't make sense. It does, right? Because little do you know, but the person that God is preparing for you as your husband, he's done the work in him, and he's trying to do the work in you. If you release yourself from that relationship, and when you guys meet in those 2 months, you're going to be so far advanced than where you are right now in this relationship, because you're holding yourself back from really walking into who God is calling you to be, to accommodate that person, right? But you have to trust God enough to move forward as if you believe what he said, right? If God has been telling me since I was a little girl that I'm going to be a millionaire, right? But the reality of the situation, excuse me, but the reality of the situation is, if he would have gave me $1 million, right, honey sweet, right? Listen, that's how I met my husband too, girl. Listen, okay? I was like, God, you said let him go. Oh, he kind of cute though, God. You said let him go though. Okay, and I let him go, and look, I was at the beach minding my business, found my whole husband, okay? But anyways, but God's been telling me since I was a little girl that I was going to be a millionaire. But if God would have gave me the money at 8 years old, guess what? I wouldn't be a millionaire, right? If God would have gave me the money probably in the last 6 months, I wouldn't be a millionaire. I wouldn't be able to sustain it because I had bad money management, right? And not because I was out here trying to buy stuff I couldn't afford, but because I had a habit of trying to play God in people's lives. So when I have money, I want to save the world. And God's like, that ain't what I told you to do. Like, if I didn't tell you to give it to somebody, don't give it to them. I don't care what their situation and circumstance is. How do you know I'm not teaching them a lesson? How do you know I'm not stretching them? How do you know I'm not increasing their faith by believing that I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do, not that Destiny's going to do what I said I was going to do, right? And so that is a lesson in itself, right? A lot of times we think God, I ain't trying to hit nobody car, okay? But a lot of times we think that God is holding it back from us because of like other stuff, right? Because we have bad money management or whatever. No, it's because you are in bondage to servitude in a capacity that God has not called you to be. You are trying to be God, and that's not what God's telling you to do, right? And so for me, it required me to relearn, right? Because we're taught you should be a giver, you should serve, you should do this, and those are true attributes of being a kingdom person. But in all things, right, too much of it is not a good thing. And especially if you're doing it out of the will of God. And there's a lot of people out here serving in a capacity that God has not called them to serve at, right? And so I say all that to say, like I said, I didn't want this to be super long, and I just pulled up. But I just say all that to say that God is truly ready to give you everything he's promised you. It's just, are you showing him that you are ready? Are you showing him that you believe what he said is capable? Like I said at some point in this live, God told me at the beginning of this month, he said, Destiny, I don't want you advertising therapy this month. Destiny, I don't want you advertising your mentorship this month. Destiny, I don't want you advertising your program. I want you to cancel it. He said, I only want you to focus on these 2 things this month, right? And one was the conference, pushing the conference, advertising the conference, right? And then another thing is something else he's told me to work on. And I was like, God, but where my money gonna come from? Because this conference, obviously, it's a budget. It goes to the conference. It doesn't come to Destiny. I was saying that my thing was gonna die. But and then the other endeavor that I'm doing, it's at the beginning stages, so I'm not in the position. Sorry, I hope y'all can still hear me because I'm moving this thing around. But it's in the beginning stages. I'm doing foundational work right now, so it's not making money, right? And so I was like, God, where's my money gonna come from? And so he was like, just trust me. And when I started operating as if I trusted God, meaning if God did not tell me to stop doing something or not do something, like, okay, I go and get a massage every month, and I was like, okay, well, I could just not get it this month, because that's money I could save. And he said, is that what I told you to do? And sometimes we are so in the natural that we don't allow God to do the supernatural, right? And when I didn't call and cancel my massage appointment, right, money came. Like, as I'm truly being obedient, as I pay my tithes, as I do everything that I would have done any other month when I would have been advertising my business the way I usually do and different things like that, I have probably I actually did make more money this month than I made last month. Probably I made more money this month than I probably made in the last 2 months. And I did less work, right? A lot less work, because I ain't been shooting out no emails or anything like that. I'm actually redoing a lot of my business stuff. And that's what God wants to do for all of us, right? And it doesn't even have to just apply to your business. It could apply in your marriage. It can apply to your parenting. It can apply to going to college. It can apply to so many things, that God truly is ready to do what he promised to do for you. He's just waiting for you to operate and move like you believe him, right? So if God told you that he's going to end this year with you being able to purchase a new home, are you looking at your credit score? Are you looking at your bank account? Are you looking at, the last denial that you got from the bank? Or are you still moving as if you believe God? Are you still online looking at houses that you like? Are you still, reaching out to organizations of what you can do to get your credit score higher? Like, what are you doing holding fast to the promise that God gave you versus operating as if you don't believe what he said? Because I am like the poster child for, like, and I still struggle with it, I ain't gonna lie, but I'm like the poster child for, like, okay, God, you said this is gonna happen. Like, I'm just gonna let it go, release it, and you gonna do what you gonna do, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I just had like this contract that I'm in, right? And in the contract, I have to pay a certain amount of money every single month, and I can't miss any of the payment. Like, it has to be an exact amount or more, right? And last month I called in to make the payment, because I don't know if you guys know, but I don't have any debt. The only debt I have right now is my house. And so I'm my husband and I are really working on allowing this to work for us, right? Like, being in a position where you don't have any debt. I do have student loan debt, but it's like $30,000 in right now, of course, because of COVID and everything is on forbearance, or whatever that stuff is called, deferment. And so right now we're really putting ourselves in position to invest and just really do something. So I signed up for this thing, or I'm part of this contract thing that I'm doing, and I got to make this payment every single month, and I have to make the payment every single month for at least 3 months, right? And so I called in last month to make the payment, and it's like $785. And I don't know what happened, but the lady on the line misconstrued what I said, and she put the payment in for $781, right? So I get an email today, and they're like, hey, it looks like you have decided to no longer go with the services because the contract, you didn't meet the requirements of the contract. And I'm like, what? Like, I made the payment. Like, I remember making the payment on July the 1st, okay? And so I pull up the, because I know those payments have to be made, and I don't want them to be touched, like, or messed with. I do it from an account that I don't use, right? So I log into the account, and I'm like, did this payment go out? Like, I know the money was in there, and I looked, and it says the payment was processed for $781, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how did she get this wrong? Like, I didn't do like through the automated system. Like, I actually talked to a live person, okay? And my heart dropped, because I'm like, based on, if you know anything about legality and contracts, the company could have easily said, regardless of it being her error or not, like, it's your job, because you signed the contract, to make sure the payment was right? And they would have been absolutely right, because I should have done my due diligence after I processed the payment to check to make sure she took it for the right amount. Which I don't know where she got $781 from, because in the system you just press she's making a payment, that. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started freaking out. And I immediately like arrested myself. And I was like, you know what? This is the enemy, right? Because I told God that I'm really trusting him, that anything that's meant for me is meant for me. Anything that's not meant for me is not meant for me. The God I serve, the Father that I have, is a perfect Father, and he will change regulations, rules, and laws on my behalf, right? And so I just waited on hold, and they answered, and I was like, hey, it looks like there was a possible miscommunication or mix-up. I called in July, and I made the payment, but I received an email saying I'm no longer wanting to follow through with the contract, but I do, and I don't think I would have wanted the contract to end over $4, right? And I was like, but if there's no way that we can continue, that's perfectly fine, but I would like to speak to someone of management and have them look into it. And so the old me would have been like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, they're like, based on the contract, like I would have been freaking out. But when you truly believe what God says, when you truly trust him, and when you truly are able to get in the depths of your mind, body, and soul, that whatever is truly meant for me will be mine. Like when you really, really get that and allow that to resonate in your soul, like, I don't care if somebody today be like, hey, I don't want to be your friend. I don't care if today somebody's like, we wanted you to be a speaker, but we don't want you to be a speaker no more. Like, I don't care what it looks like. If it's meant for Destiny L. Thomas, okay, then God's going to have it happen. Whether it has to not happen today, for it to happen 6 months from now, for me to just be reminded yet again of how good he is and how he takes a no and turns it into a yes. I'm going to know that if he promised it to me, it's going to happen. But my actions have to line up. Hey, Tiff. But my actions are going to have to line up with that. And literally from the moment I say, you know what, God changes rules, laws. I don't know. I have it written down actually on my wall at home. But God changes laws, rules, and regulations on my behalf. It's something that, like an affirmation I say, but it's biblical actually. But when I started saying, I was like, you know what? God changes laws, rules, and regulations on my behalf. So if this is intended for me, if I'm supposed to be a part of this process, then they're going to make an exception. They're going to be able to take the little $4 out of my account right now, and we're going to be done with it, and I'm going to go on about the rest of my day. And the lady came on the phone, and she was like, oh my gosh, girl, this is not your fault at all. I don't know what she was doing, what happened. We're just going to go ahead and process the payment for $4, and you're good to go. Like, that's literally what happened. But if I would have allowed the enemy, if I'd allowed myself, my flesh to rise up and get all frazzled, guess what would have probably happened 99.9% of the time? I would have got somebody on the phone who would have given me pushback, right? I would have gotten somebody on the phone who would have been like, well, it says what it says, right? And we have that situation happen so many times, right? We get those people on the line who are super difficult. They don't want to help us, and we be so frustrated, but we never went to God and asked God, when do you want me to call? God, when do you want me to handle this situation? How do you want me to handle this situation? Because God always has a ram in the bush. God always has somebody there that's willing to hear you out. One of the girls, not telling her business, I hope she won't care, but one of the girls who's leaving with us for Cabo, she did not have her passport yet. She expedited it and everything, but she did not have her passport yet, and we leave on Thursday, right? And this is my last story, and then I'm gonna go. But we leave on Thursday, right? And she's bought her flight. She's paid for everything. We go on an excursion, everything. But if you ain't got no passport, honey, it don't matter what you pay for. You're not going nowhere, okay? And so, her and I were talking, and I was like, hey, there's this number you can call when you're, a certain amount of days out of the trip. Call this number and see what happens, right? So she called the number, and it was like, look, the appointments that we usually make, there are none left. You kind of out of luck. Like, you just got to reschedule your vacation. So she calls me, and I'm like, what'd they say? And she tells me, and I'm like, nah, I worked in corporate America way too long to know that that's how that works. Like, you always got to go to a higher up. You ain't got to be rude or nothing, but you always got to ask to speak to somebody over them, because in a corporation, even if it's federal government, there always is someone who can make an exception, or someone who's willing to hear your situation out and go up more above and beyond than the last person, right? So I'm like, I'll call. So I call, and I sit on the phone for 2 hours, okay? And I get somebody on the phone, and homegirl was not giving me nothing, okay? She was like, there's nothing we can do for you. You need to reschedule your trip. Like, there's nothing we can do. And I said, so there's nothing you can do at all? And she was like, no. And I was like, even though we've expedited, she was like, no, there's nothing we can do. I said, okay, well, let me speak to your supervisor. And she was like, well, she's going to tell you the same thing I said. And I said, okay, that's fine. But I would prefer her to tell me that. Like, you know, I appreciate everything you were able to do for me, which was nothing, but I would like to speak to her. And she told me like 3 more times, say if she can, she's going to tell you the same thing. I said, that's fine. But the amount of time that you keep reiterating this to me, I could actually be talking to her. So if you don't mind, I want to save you time and me time. Can you just get your supervisor on the phone, right? So she's like, you're going to have to wait on hold. I will wait again. I've been on hold for 2 hours. I think another 30 minutes is not going to hurt me, right? And so she puts me on hold. The supervisor comes on and I tell her what's going on. I'm like, hey, you know, this is our situation. We need this passport. Like, is there anything we can do? And she was like, now there's nothing I can do, but there's nothing physically here I can do. But what I can do is send you this email and it'll get your passport like moved up, right? And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. But before the lady who wasn't really trying to be helpful gave me the supervisor, something she said was, but you can continue to call every day and see if something else changes, right? Now, when she said this to me, I immediately got irritated. Like, ma'am, I just told you I was on hold for 2 hours. Like, why would I possibly, or even the other young lady, why would we possibly want to keep calling every day and sit on hold for most likely nothing to happen, right? But remember, at the beginning of this live, I said, God, I want you to continue to show me different ways that you speak to me, right? And so the lady was like, okay, I'm going to send you the email, fill this out, and it should be able to get it expedited. She was like, but worst case scenario, call back, right? And so, so she sent us the email, we filled it out, whatever. So I was in prayer, praying about something totally different, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, tell the girl to call Monday morning, first thing when they open, right? So as you guys know, I be doing 50 million 11 things all the time, so I forgot to tell her. But it was so urgent that I was asleep and God woke me up in the middle of the night out of my sleep, right? It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, Lord, I hope she get this message, but I'm about to give it to her. So I texted to her and she happened to be up because it was nothing but God, right? And she's like, all right, I'm going to call early in the morning. So she calls before they technically open based off of online and got somebody on the phone. And they were able to make her an appointment, which was what they said. There was no longer any appointments. Now, before in prayer, before God actually responded and said, tell her to call back again on Monday, what kept ringing in my ear was, call back and see if anything changed. Call back and see if anything changed. And so that's something that God has been doing with me lately, right? I'll be doing something and he'll bring something back to my memory, and he's been showing me that that's him. So another example really quick is I was getting my hair braided, because not this braid, but another braids. And I was sitting in a chair, and out of nowhere, I had like this vision come to me of one of my high school friends. We were at her son's first birthday party, and she walked past me and she looked pregnant, and I reached my hand out and touched her stomach, right? And she was like, what are you doing like that? And I was like, and she was like, shh, don't say nothing. And she was pregnant with her second baby, right? And so I was sitting in the hairdresser reading a book, getting my hair braided, and out of nowhere that image came to my mind. And I was like, God, why did you show me that? And I was like, is she pregnant? So I texted her real quick. I was like, hey girl, what you been up to? Like, I'm just calling, checking in. I know it's been a couple of months since we spoke. And she was like, this is what I'm up to. And she was pregnant. And I was like, okay, God, I see you, right? So then he did it again. There was another young lady. I think I seen her picture on Instagram, and immediately this thought came to my mind, like, what if she's pregnant, right? And so I messaged her, and I was like, guys, this is going so random, but I promise you, God be having me go down roads, and it's for somebody, so whoever needs it, praise be to God, right? And so I was like, what if she's pregnant? Like, it was just like a random thought. And let's be clear, like, I didn't even know like her relationship status or anything like that. So I'm like, that might not be even me. Like, why would I be thinking that, right? And so I messaged her and I was like, hey girl, where you been, stranger? And she was like, what is God telling you, Destiny? Because I know every time you reach out to me, God is telling you my business. And I was like, nothing. I was just checking on you. She was like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, right? So I say all that to say, God is ready to give you everything he's promised you, even if it's something as subtle as you saying, God, I want to be I'm over here breaking stuff. But God, I want to be able to see you in the small things. I want to be able to know how you speak to me in all ways. He's ready, and he just needs you to operate and move like you are ready for it, right? He's just waiting for you to show up as the person he is saying that you are, right? And I always use this and I always say this when it comes to like healing, right? I get asked all the time, like, how do you know, Destiny, like, you know, being the therapist, how do you know when you're healed, or how do you know when you're, you know, closer to being healed than you were when you started? And I always say, healing, the difference between a healed person and why? I just need to take this off and stop playing, okay? Because I'm over here tearing stuff up. It was on my little thing, but there, that'll work. And the true difference between a healed person and an unhealed person is just the decision, right? When I was unhealed, I was giving this young lady I was talking to an example, and I said, when I was unhealed, right? So I have my best friend from when we were younger. We've been friends since 3rd grade, right? And the unhealed version of Destiny, well, let me give you an example. So we had my son's first birthday party. Leading up to his birthday party, we were talking every single day. She was helping me plan. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So she's been my best friend since 3rd grade, right? And we were talking every single day, planning for getting ready for the party, right? And literally right after the party, she like went AWOL, right? And I was like, in my head, like, as I'm doing stuff, like, randomly it would come to my mind, like, dang, what happened to her? Like, where's she doing? Like, where'd she go? Like, she lives like 20 minutes away from me. She don't live far, right? But the unhealed version of Destiny, right, would have immediately been offended, right? I would have immediately made it about me. I would have immediately been like, oh, well, maybe she didn't like this, or made up, like, I would have allowed the enemy to make up these ideas in my mind of why she was upset with me, right? Not realizing that this is a grown woman that's married with 3 kids, a job. Like, she has other responsibilities, right? And Destiny is not her priority or a responsibility of hers, right? But the unhealed version of me would have made it immediately about me. And a lot of us do that, right? A lot of us who are not fully healed yet, we talk to people regularly, but the minute we don't hear from them, the minute, you know, we think they saw our stories and didn't reply, like, we immediately think the worst about people that have shown us that they're truly good people, right? But the healed version of me, right, which is who I am today, I'm walking in who God said I am, right? I picked up the phone and I think I either texted her or called her. No, I called her, right? Because even text can be miscrewed, right? So I'm a caller, right? So I called her. I was like, hey, girl, where you been at? You all right? And she was like, yeah, I'm doing all right. You know, we just had some things going on personally. And I actually picked up quite a bit of more hours at work because, you know, we're planning this and that with the family and stuff like that, right? And look how simple that was, right? So the difference between a healed person and an unhealed person is a decision, right? Is deciding that you are no longer the victim, but that you are the victor. Is deciding that everything is not about you, that the world does not revolve around you, that because somebody's not talking to you doesn't mean that it has to do with you. Like, that's the difference between a healed person and an unhealed person. It's a decision. Hey, Rashida. It's a decision, right? And so I strongly encourage everyone watching this live to ask yourself, are you walking out who God says you are or who people say you are, right? I meet with so many people who say, you know, yeah, I know I operate from rejection, and I'm just asking God to show me how to not operate like that anymore and things like that. Well, the thing about it is a lot of us, and I mean this in the most humblest way, but a lot of us want God to be in control until he wants us to let him be in control, right? And when I say that, what I mean is, when it comes to you leaving that relationship, when it comes to you surrendering, when it comes to, you know, those things, it's like, well, God, if you really wanted me to leave, you would make me leave. No, right? But when God tells you to do something, then you don't want to give him the control, right? Because now the way you give God control is by being obedient and doing what he's telling you to do the way he's telling you to do it, right? So if he's saying you need to leave the relationship, guess who has to do the work? You. All 8, 9 of y'all that's watching this, you have to do the work, right? But when he says surrender, right, you got to do the work. Now God is such a merciful and graceful God that you can say, God, I need your help, right? God, show me how to surrender. Now he's going to give you ways to show you how to surrender, and you got to be willing to meet him there, right? But a lot of us are like, God, if God wanted me to no longer be in poverty, he would do it. No, you got to stop making some of the decisions you making, right? Because God keeps getting you out of your mess, and you keep making the same decisions to go back into your mess. Right? And so God is ready to give you everything he's promised to give you, but he's waiting for you to operate as if you are who you need to be to receive it. If God said that you were a queen, right? Let's talk about Esther, right? When Esther was an orphan, if God showed Esther an image or a vision of her being a queen, right? She probably be like, who? Me? God, I'm an orphan. I ain't even got no parents, right? But when she changed her mindset, right? When she still went to be picked, right, to be the queen, when she still allowed them to take her through the preparation process to go before the king, regardless of whether she knew he was going to pick her or not, right? We have to walk into things. We have to, if God's telling you to go back to school, you have to be the one to go and fill out the admissions forms. You have to be the one to go look up colleges or go and pray and say, God, which college do you want me to go to? I know my GPA from the last one wasn't that good, so it got to be somebody that's going to receive. God, you got to get me on the phone with the right person who's going to accept my GPA for what it was and know that I'm a new person now and I'm going to do better this time. Like a lot of times God is telling us to do something and we just don't do it, right? We just don't do it. I actually I'm hosting a mentorship, an accountability mentorship group. And like I said, I'm not offering positions for it. So this live is not about this. This live, if you want to buy something from Destiny, go get you a conference ticket, okay? That's all I got to say. But I'm doing a mentorship. It's an accountability mentorship for 90 days, right? And when we started the mentorship program in July, every single one of them had to go before God and ask God what he wanted them to focus on for the next 90 days. Some of them got a YouTube channel, writing a book, writing songs, poems, all types of stuff, right? And we meet with them bi-weekly, me and my team, and some of them haven't done it, right? Some of them are like, well, I got this distraction and that distraction. The reality that you have to understand is if God told you to do it and you asked him in the next 90 days, meaning the next 3 months, God didn't mean 6 months from now, 12 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. You specifically asked him, God, what do you want me to get complete in the next 90 days? And he gave you a response. Guess what? He knew about those distractions. He knew about the extra hours at work they was going to offer. He knew about how your kids was going to be on what they on right now. He knew all of that, but he still told you to do it. And a lot of people yield to the enemy or yield to the distractions and then be like, well, God, I don't even know how, why you keep giving me this stuff to do, how I'm going to get it done. Well, because you are not walking as if you're going to get it done. You're yielding to it. Okay. Amen. But that's all I have for you guys today. I haven't been live in so long, right? I promise next month's really busy, but I'm going to try to do better next month with going live. I have some really, really cool things coming out. I'm going to do a webinar about rejection coming up probably within the next 2 months. That's something that I get a lot of questions about, how to identify the seed of rejection and abandonment, how to walk out of it, how to do therapy about it. So I do want to do a webinar on that, and I'm really, really excited. So make sure you're on my email list or make sure you're on my Instagram so you get the notifications of when I'm offering that. And it will be a free webinar, absolutely free. But I really want to spend some time there because I just see how many people operate from that place, and it's truly holding them back from being everything God has called them to be. It held me back for so long, and so I just want to spend some time in that area because in inner healing and therapy and just hearing the voice of God, it just affects so much of your walk with Christ and just who God is calling you to be. So I appreciate you all for being here. I do want to open it up for questions. I don't want to just jump off, even though I'm sitting in front of my grandma's house. But if anybody has any questions, I'll give about 2 minutes for questions. And then I'll go. I said I didn't want this to be too long. I think it's only about 30 minutes, maybe, prayerfully. I don't know. Oh, 39. So yeah, we got 2 minutes, and I'll answer some questions in 2 minutes, and then I'll go. So it'll be at like 40 minutes. Any questions? Any questions? Oh, it keeps freezing. You guys can't hear me? Whew. It is hot today. My AC worked, but I didn't want it to be too loud for y'all, so I cut it down. But yeah, that was a bad decision, okay? Any questions? Sheena, can you hear me now? I know you said it was freezing. Any questions? Oh, I see one. I don't know when this was asked. It's freezing? Y'all can't hear me? How about now? I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. It's freezing. Is it still frozen? Can anybody hear me? Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Thanks, Tracy Ann. Any questions, anybody? If not, I will go. If you have not purchased your conference ticket, I don't know what you are waiting for. It is going to be amazing, okay? Amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the host, because in technicality, I am not the host at all. The Holy Spirit is the host. He's the MC. He's the master of music. He is just all of it, okay? It will be hosted in Virginia Beach, Virginia, October 22nd and 23rd. We have Rashida in the house who's on here. We have Desiree Taylor, Joanna Beck, Sierra Mason. We have some true powerhouses. Myself, Morgan McKell, or Morgan soon to be, what's his, oh my gosh, I forgot my brother's last name. But Derek. We have Shayna. We have, like, it's just gonna be live, y'all. It's gonna be live, okay? So if you are local to the Virginia Beach area, go get your ticket. If you're not and don't mind traveling, go get your ticket right now until the 15th. The tickets are buy one, get one free for general admission, so you can get both days of the conference for only $50 as long as you and a friend purchase at the same time. That is still of a deal, okay? Because those tickets regularly were $100 per ticket, and it will be a packed out house. I'm just amazed. I just can't wait to see what God does, because last year he did that, okay? How do you structure your prayer time? That is such a multifaceted question, Chance. I believe that's your actual name, but Chance at Life. And the reason why it's a multifaceted question, because I find that the reason why people get stuck is because they want their prayer life to look a certain way that's not realistic, right? So my relationship with God is very similar to my relationship with my husband, right? Or my relationship with one of my best friends, one of my dearest friends, right? And so, like I said a little bit earlier, me and one of my best friends, we were talking every single day, planning my son's birthday, right? And then after the birthday party, I didn't hear from her, right? And like I said, I could have assumed that something went wrong, but no, she had stuff going on in life. And that's the same way that I treat my prayer life, right? So I structure it where before the day is over, at some point I spend time with God, right? But I had to be okay with it not looking the same every day. And that's where I used to struggle, right? I used to feel like if my prayer life couldn't be the same every single day, what was the point of doing it? It's kind of like going to the gym, right? If I could not get on the treadmill and do the lunges, y'all know I don't work out, right? I can't even say it right. Lunges and do this and do that, then what was the point? But when I changed my perspective and I changed my mind and I realized that doing some form of moving my body is better than nothing at all, I gave myself grace, and that's what it looks like. So how do I structure my prayer life? Right now I have a 1-year-old, right? Tuesday through Thursday, my 1-year-old's not home. So that's when I get to really do my longer length devotional prayer time. And sometimes I don't, because I go right into work and I just get to wake up in the morning and pray. But I have to understand that some days, like, I'll look at my schedule and it's super, super packed. But because God is my best friend and I want him to hear from me at some point during the day, then I know when I go to the track, I'm going to either put my praise and worship music on, or I'm just going to spend that time talking to God and being intentional about hearing him, right? So I would ask you to change your perspective in regards to how do you structure your prayer time, and ask yourself, when did you make time for your best friend today, right? And when you do that, it will change. You will, like, your life will change. So that would be my response to your question. Hopefully that helps you. But the more you try to structure it, the more it's not realistic, right? In my marriage, if I only wanted to talk to my husband every day at lunch, at his lunch break, the days that my husband also travels for work, so there's days where he has to do events and he gets no lunch break, right? There's days I have back-to-back meetings and I don't get a lunch break, right? Or like the last couple of weeks, God has been having me do different fasts. I'm not getting lunch break, right? Would I not talk to my husband? No, that would be weird, right? So I hope that helps though. But I'm gonna go. I didn't really want this to be an hour long. But I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will do another live at some point, maybe on my way to Cabo, maybe. But I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I hope this really, really encourages someone to begin to walk into what God has promised you. So if God says that marriage is on the horizon for you, that he's preparing you for marriage, then I want you to operate as if you're about to get married, right? I want you to come home from work and prepare meals, if that's what you want to do as a wife, right? I want you to make sure that every weekend is not booked and busy with hanging with your girls, right? I want you to start to move and operate as if you believe that marriage is on the horizon for you, regardless if you see a man in the horizon or not, right? If God is saying that a baby is coming soon for you, if you've been believing God for a child, then I want you to start operating like you have a child, right? When I had Destin, I couldn't just stop at 7-Eleven anytime, right? Because he would be sleeping. I'm like, I'm not about to wake him up to run into the store. I had to be more strategic with when I left the house, how I left, how much time I gave myself to leave, right? So if you truly believe that God is going to release these things to you, then you have to begin to operate as if you already have it, right? Because that is how it will be released even sooner. I hope you all have an amazing day. I realize I did not open this live with prayer, so I'm going to close it with prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, we come before you and we just thank you so much, God, for who you are. We thank you for your persistency, God. We thank you for waking us up yet again to have another day to serve you, God. Another day to do what it is you've called us to do, God. Another day just to be here in this earth, God. I ask that you just move in a mighty way, that every single person that is on this live or that will watch the replay, God, that you will reignite a fire in them, God, that you will remind them, God, that you are ready to release everything you've promised them. You're just waiting for them to walk into it, for them to walk as if they believe it, God. If you have promised them, God, that you are going to make them financially free, God, that they will make sure their account is not overdrawn, that they will get their finances in order, that they will begin to pay the things that are priority versus the desires and the wants that they have, God, that they will truly seek you for wisdom when it comes to what you've been promising them, God, and they will begin to walk in it. God, I just ask that you have your way and that you give your people peace in this season when there's so much fear and chaos, God, that you would just give them peace, that you will comfort them and remind them, God, that you are omnipresent, God. You are everywhere all the time, God. You know everything, God, that you are truly our protector, God, that you truly just adore us, God, and want nothing but great things for us, God. I just ask that you just move in a mighty way, God, and just give your people peace, that you will remove the spirit of anxiousness and overwhelm, God, and just that feeling of just wanting to give up, wanting to just throw in the towel and just go back to their old ways, God. I just ask that you give them clarity and instruction and direction, and we just give you all the praise, glory, and honor in Jesus Christ's mighty name we pray. Amen, amen, amen. Bye, guys.